Hello, folks. I'm OdinSpack, and welcome back to 33 years and counting of my favorite games. Today is part number 10. We're into the year 2013. Definitely has some titles that are very me-centric. I'm like, oh, okay, this might be a little bit of a tougher one to do. Honestly, it didn't end up being too difficult figuring out my top three, maybe the placement of them. But there's a lot of cool stuff this year, so let's just get right into the honorable mentions. First off, we have a ROM hack in here, which is Final Fantasy VI General Leo Edition. I played this for the first time last year, um, but it's been continuing to get updates, even until as early as last June it got an update. But the original ROM hack came out in 2013. Final Fantasy VI, just one of my favorite games ever. Um, this is a ROM hack that basically makes one of the unplayable characters in the game playable, which is in itself is really cool because it is a really cool character. But it does much more than that. It kind of just refines the balancing of some of the things in the game where replaying like it kind of knows like, hey, this is a ROM hack. We don't want to waste too much of your time with like grinding and stuff. So we're gonna simplify some stuff for you as far as like getting spells for the characters and whatnot. Like that's way easier in this one, so there's like less grinding there. There's a lot of bug fixes that were like present in the original Final Fantasy VI that have since been fixed in this ROM hack. And then there's a couple of like super fights that weren't in the original game. And there's like some new dialogue revolving around the new character. It's really cool. I really enjoyed it. Um, I would honestly I would give this another playthrough again. I really quite enjoyed playing through this because it was almost like a fresh take on Final Fantasy VI. It wasn't completely different, and it took a little bit to get to those changes. But like when it did, it was like, oh, cool, this is awesome. And then it just kind of felt like playing through another Final Fantasy VI playthrough, but just with that little bit of edge to it that just it made it unique. So there's that. Okay, I kind of went a little bit into that into that honorable mention. Uh, Final Fantasy 14: A Realm Reborn. I played the original launch of 14. I wasn't really too much into it, not as much as I was with 11. But A Realm Reborn was a lot of fun. Uh, I I got to play with a few of my friends for the first time, kind of on their server. So like that was a unique experience playing with people that like I didn't really like meet like through my brother basically because that was a lot of my 11 experience. So it was neat getting to play like with my own friends on 14. I've only played through the original A Realm Reborn and then like the can like the campaign after that. Not quite Heaven's Ward, but there's A Realm Reborn and then there's like a section after it. So I've played all of that, and I would love to play through this game. People say all the expansions are fantastic, but I just know it would be such a huge time commitment that I just can't see myself doing it. And like it is free to play, I know, till the end of Heaven's Word. I know there's that big meme, but because I've paid for it in the past, I would want to like use my credentials, and then it wouldn't be free to play. So it's like I'm not gonna worry about it. Um, but I know I'm saying all that. I really did enjoy my first romp, uh, in Eorzea. It was a lot of fun. But I can't see myself revisiting it, but I can see why people love it, and thought it deserved an honorable mention. I'm going to very quickly talk NES Remix now because we mentioned it last time that it made one of my honorable mentions. This is just the first one of those. So NES Remix pack was the next year. This is this is the first one. So it's just like half of that. I already talked about it last time. It was a really unique experience getting to play through different Nintendo games like Rapid Fire, WarioWare style. Pretty fun. And then last, my honorable mentions is Path of Exile. This was another free to play game that basically was modeled after Diablo 2, that's just one of my favorite games of all time. Um, And so I had to play this because the year prior there was Diablo 3, which was like a different take. Like they went in a different direction for Diablo 3 than on Diablo 2, and I guess the devs that made this are like, "Oh, what if we kind of just stuck with the Diablo 2 thing?" So they made their own version of it. And it's really cool. I really thought it fit the like it felt like I was playing a Diablo game. Like it's its own thing. Don't get me wrong, but it didn't feel like a knockoff or anything like that. Like it's a really well made game. I beat it um, back around when the time it came out. And I think I've beaten it twice, and then I haven't really gone back since. I know there's been like so much changes to it now. But saying all this now is making me want to kind of give it another playthrough because like I said, it's really cool. I love the customization's really cool. It's like think of the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X, but it's gigantic. And there's so many skills in the game, so many routes you can take your character, so many builds. It's really cool. All right, so there's my honorable mentions. Let's go into the top three, starting with the bronze medal, and that's going to go to Fire Emblem Awakening. For many people, this was their first experience with a Fire Emblem game, and it kind of helped to revitalize the series. It takes a similar to Sacred Stone's route, where it's not open world, but like you can replay areas and grind your characters up. There's a lot of cool uh, cool things you can do regarding like your characters' relationships. And by when I say that, I mean like okay, the relationship part is like that's whatever. But as far as the gameplay part of that, like depending on the characters you pair up, they have like children units that you will get eventually, and depending on who the parents are, will determine what that character can be. As far as like class wise, and I think that's really cool. This game I think is the first, at least in North America. I think there was one before this, but at least in North America, this was the first one to introduce like multi-classing for characters, where you can like, hey, I don't want them to be a fighter anymore. I want them to be archer, and you can do that. And I think that's really cool because I love customization of my characters in any strategy RPG. So you definitely get to an overpowered characters really fast with that. But the fact that it's there is awesome, and I love it. Like the fact that you can turn like one of the starting knight guys into like a healer like priest, and then he's like super tanky but can heal guys. Like I just love that stuff. I wish that was like in more strategy RPGs, and I know in future Fire Emblems they have that now too. But this is the game that started that. I played through it when it originally came out. I had a blast with it. I've not touched it since, but this is another one where I would love to give it a replay. Definitely check it out. Oh, and the music is great. I've been saying that for a lot this series, but the music is just great. My silver medal is going to go to The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. This is another 3DS title, along with the last one. This is a spiritual sequel. Like it's not like an official sequel, but like it may as well be. Like it's not like direct. It's not a direct sequel, but it's like a sequel to A Link to the Past. It takes place in the same Hyrule. The map layout is relatively the same. Like there are changes, but it's relatively the same. If you've played the original one on the SNES, you're gonna feel right at home with this one. But they remembered that this was like a new game, so like it has like its own mechanics to it. One thing that's really neat is you can approach the dungeons in any order. Well, you can mostly approach the dungeons in any order. I don't want to say too much on that. That was a thing you could do in A Link to the Past, and I think that's what they were going for in this game. But they tried to make it a little more open by making the items. The items aren't in the dungeons. There are items in dungeons, but not like items you need to progress in dungeons. You know how like in most Zelda games, where like you'll find the bow and arrow in a dungeon, and you'll need it to get through that dungeon. Well, in this game, you get the bow and arrow before the dungeon, and then you have to take it into the dungeon and solve the puzzles with it. Which like it allows you to like I said, do anything in any order, but it also makes it so the dungeons are kind of designed around that item as opposed to like all of the items that you have at any one time, which is like I know some people complain about that, which is like a fair complaint. But I do think it's cool that you can kind of approach it however you want. And some of the items that you're not even supposed to have in some of those dungeons, you can use creatively to get through it easier. And I think the designers definitely intended for some of that. Um, so I don't think it's like perfect when it comes to that, but one of my favorite parts about Zelda games is the dungeons, and there's a ton of them in this game. So like I'm like right at home with this one. It's just like yeah, I want to how am I gonna approach this playthrough? Mind you, I've only done one playthrough, but I maxed the heck out of that playthrough. I did everything. I did all of the street pass stuff, which was like insane. There was so much. The reward not worth it at all, but I did it anyway because I thought it was fun. I had a lot of fun playing this game. This is one I need to get another playthrough of, and this is one I've just been wanting to do a playthrough for this channel or stream it or something. I really like this game, and I really want to play it again. All right, and then last, my gold medal for 2013 is going to go to Super Mario 3D World. Much like 3D Land, which came before it on the 3DS, this is the sequel to that. I mean, not technically a sequel, but like it's the same style of game. It's a I feel like this is the first multiplayer Mario game that like the multiplayer isn't like terrible. Like on the Wii, it was not too good. Like I said, I love that game, but the multiplayer was not good with dragging people off screen. Now that's a thing that still exists in 3D world, but I feel like with the 3D overview, it's just a little better. It just works better. Um, I actually experienced the whole game multiplayer recently with the re-release that came out on Switch. And that's not what I'm talking about right now, but I want to mention that real quick because I think that was pretty good. I did enjoy it, and I haven't played Bowser's Fury yet. Again, that's not 2013 though. This is where that's in the future. Um, but I think the multiplayer is a fine experience. But one of my favorite parts about 3D World is I'm not like a huge 3D platformer guy. Like I enjoy Mario 3D platformers for the most part, just because I just enjoy Mario platformers in general. But when I start veering off into other games, like they just don't click for me. I don't know. I think Mario just kind of just does it right, and so like I feel like at home when I play like a Mario game. But what I like about 3D Land and 3D World is that they take the 2D experience of a Mario game, which is my favorite. Like I love 2D Mario like so much. They take the 2D experience with the power ups and just kind of like the general over like just kind of how the game works, and they put it into a 3D setting. So this isn't like a 3D game where you're like looking for moons somewhere, stars or anything like that. It's not like that. It's a level by level basis, which I like. Um, and it has power ups, which I feel like is kind of like a missed thing in the 3D games, the 3D Mario games, but they just do them differently in those ones. I like the hybrid that this is of between 2D and 3D, and I think it's kind of funny that it's even called 3D World because I think the idea of that is like, hey, look, this is like a classic Mario title, but it's in 3D. It's not a 2D platformer. It's not quite a 3D platformer. I think that's the idea behind the name. And I mean, honestly, it's a sequel to 3D Land, which is on the 3DS. That's probably why it's actually called that. But looking back, it's kind of clever. All right, I like 3D World. The music's fantastic. I don't think there's much more to say on it. I think I'm really glad that they put the style into Mario Maker 2. It's really cool. Would play again. Have played through twice so far. Maybe a third time coming soon. All right, thank you so much for watching today. If you have any differing opinions, any games that you played and I didn't, and you thought I should have mentioned them, please let me know in the comments as always. And I will see you next time for part 11, which we will talk about 2012. So until then, I've been OdinSpack. Goodbye.